Hey, welcome to the show, and today I want to do an overview of the Leica M2. The Leica M2 is Leica's second M mount body after the M3. The M3 started as the first model to have the bayonet M mount, and the Leica M2 came after because people wanted to use wider angle lenses. So the Leica M2 is basically made to use a 35 lens without goggles or external viewfinder. It's a rangefinder camera made by Leica in Germany. As you can see here, I have two models. This one's way more used. This one's a bit more like brand new or looks newer. This one's mounted with a 35 and a 50 Summicron. And basically the M2 doesn't have a lot of features. It doesn't have a light meter. It's fully mechanical. It goes from shutter speeds from bulb 1 second, 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8, 15, all the way to 1,000 of a second, with a flash sync of 1/45th of a second, which is between the 30 and the 60 shutter speed. It has the frame lines for a 35, a 50, and a 90 lens. The good thing about the frame lines is they're clean lines. And by this, what I mean is that if you grab, this is the brochure from the Leica M2 from back in the day. If you check the brochure, it says it has the 35, careful because it's pretty old. It has the 35 frame lines, but there's no other frame lines showing. Then you have the 50 frame lines, and there's no other frame lines showing, and the 90 millimeter frame lines. This is something that I actually find very convenient, as your viewfinder window will be as clean as possible. It has the little patch in the middle for the rangefinder focusing, and that's all you have in your viewfinder. No lights like in the M6 with a little light meter, no shutter speed, no aperture, just a frame line and a patch. That's all I need, and that's what I like. As you probably can tell, the M2 is my favorite Leica M mount body. I haven't used them all, but from the ones I've used, it's my favorite by far. So apart from that, what we have is a bayonet mount, as I said. So you have a little release here, which you press and you turn to take out. It has a cloth shutter, which goes, as I told you, all the way to 1,000th of a second. So for example, if I set it to a 15th or an 8th, maybe a 4th, so you guys can see. That's a 1/4 of a second. Then, depending on the model, on the front of the camera, you would have different settings. Like this is the viewfinder selector, so you can see the different focal lengths. When you move that, you actually see the different frame lines from different lenses. So look, you see that move when I put the 50. But if you look into the viewfinder, like right now you're seeing the 50 frame lines. Now I'm going to change them to 90. See, now the 90 is over the brochure. And then if I move them the other way, we would see the 35, which are bigger frame lines. Hard to show, but you can see them there on the right hand side. So yeah, that's the viewfinder knob, so you can selector, so you can see what lens maybe you want to use depending on what you want to shoot. Then this has a self timer, which you would basically wind all the way, shoot, and you have to click it so it will do the self timer. This is basically done for slow speeds or if you want to shoot yourself. I don't find this function very useful, and actually the body I use, there it took the picture, the body I use is this one, and it doesn't come with it, which I prefer. Also, there was a minor changes, and this is a button release. So this is what you use to rewind, or button rewind. So this is what you would use to rewind. And then this one has a little lever here. So you would turn it to the R, and you could wind your film with a little wind knob. A lot of people complain about this wind knob and don't like it, prefer the more modern M6. I actually quite like the wind knob, but it's just not intrusive. It doesn't look like it's going to ever break. And you just pull it out and you just have to wind it. So that's all you have to do when you finish your film. On the front, as I was saying, you have the viewfinder selector. You have the release for the lens. You have the self timer in the models that have it, the rewind depending on knob or lever or button. Then this is the viewfinder, the rangefinder little window. So this is the distance for the rangefinder. The M2 has the first viewfinder with a 0.72 magnification, which is something that is best for a little wider lenses like the 35. But the M3 was the famous 0.91 magnification, and people prefer that for longer lenses or more precise focusing with a 50. Then you have your little window so you can see your frame lines. Here we have the hot shoe, which I'm not sure if it's a hot shoe or cold shoe, but I would say if it has the flash sync here, that it might be a cold shoe, even though it has two little contacts on the bottom. Someone will have to correct me with that because I'm not sure. And then you have these two little red dots, which when you shoot and you got film, it will turn to know that you loaded your film correctly. Then you have on the back, it has the flash sync, and this is, I think, the old flashes which use the different connection. Then you have your ISO and different film reminder, depending if you were shooting daylight or tungsten or whatever. So basically you have here the ISO. It only goes all the way up to 1300. So I actually always shoot 1600 ISO. So I put it at 160, and that reminds me that that's the ISO I use, even though as I never change it, I usually don't have doubts. Then you have your frame counter is not automatic like in the M3, but you actually have to move it. You can hear it here. You see? You have to reset it to 0 every time you load your film. So I don't find that an inconvenience. People don't like it. I don't even look at it because I keep on shooting till I finish my film, and that's all I do there. You have your press shutter, which is your shutter release. Has a normal thread for cable releases if you're into that kind of thing. This doesn't actually do anything. It just indicates what frame you're in. Then you have your speeds, which you can turn whichever way you want, all the way to 1000, and then you have to go all the way back to get to bulb. So those are the speeds. As I told you, flash photography is 1/45th of a second. And then on the bottom, we have the plate, which you can just open, lift, as you can see there, turn, and then you open it. And then to load the film, it's very simple. You can open this little window to make sure you're doing things right. You have to pull out this little cartridge. You put your film in the arrows. There's a little arrow there. You probably can't see it, but it has a little arrow. It has this little arrow here. So let me show you. When you push your film in, you start seeing the arrow. You see? You can see the little dotted arrow there. So that's so you can make sure the film's going all the way in. Then you basically extend your film, push it back in, you shoot a few frames, and you let the pinion hold on to the holes on the film. You close it. You have to attach the bottom. It has this little hole and that you just connect, turn around, and put back down. Then you just shoot a few frames to make sure your film's gone in, and that's about it. You have your tripod screw. This one actually has the small screw. This one has the big screw. I guess they changed that because this one's an older model. Basically, that's about it on the camera. It's a very simple body. I kind of like there's not much to do with the settings. All you have to do is basically, once you have your ISO, is your aperture and your shutter speed. That's all you have to do, and focusing, of course. I'm going to show you the brochure just so you can see the different things I might have left out. You have the Leica M2 with a Leica meter, which is something that usually doesn't work as it uses selenium. Number 1 is the release button. Number 2 is the film transport lever, which is here. Number 3 is the film counter, as I told you, the little wheel here. Number 4, shutter speed dial coupled with a mounted Leica meter. It has a little like groove on between the fourth of a second and the half a second, and that's where it would attach. It's a milled ring, so you can turn it one way or the other easily. the Leica meter, which I don't have, which is here. You have the extensible rewind knob. As I told you, you pull it out like that, and you can rewind your film whichever way you want. Well, not whichever way. There actually has an arrow, so I'm sorry that I said whichever way. Rangefinder window, which is the little window here. Then you have your illumination window for finder frames, which is here. It has the viewfinder window, which is here. It has the reversing button for rewinding the film, which, as I said, this is a button. In this case, it's a lever, and this is a lever too. So I guess they hadn't translated that to the new model. Built-in self-timer, like we have here. Bayonet catch for lens changing, which is the release for the lens, which is on this side here. Lens focusing lever, which is basically what you need to turn. On the old lenses, it used to have a little lever which had a lock on infinity, so that's what it's showing here. These are more modern lenses, so it doesn't have that. Aperture setting ring, your aperture, which you just turn whichever way you want. Distance and depth of field scales, those are on the lens. This is something that a lot of people nowadays in digital don't see a lot, which is what you use to focus hyperfocal. You have these markings for hyperfocal focusing, so you know at what aperture everything is in, let's say, acceptable focus. Finder frame selector, which is, as I said, the one on the left, so you can see maybe what lens you want to use if you want to change it. So here you have all the different things. Focal plane shutter, as I showed you, it's a cloth shutter, and that's about all there is. The viewfinder frame lines, and it has a thing that it doesn't say here, and is the focusing patch in the rangefinder has like a little bottom and top little notch. It's on my M2. Let me see on the modern one. Yep. So it has like a little, inside the patch basically, there's a little bit of top coming out and small, and that's supposedly the depth of field at certain apertures. I think the top one is 5.6 and the bottom one is f16, but I'm not sure. I found that somewhere online before, and I'll try to leave the link on the description about the information. And basically that's about all there is to a Leica M2. These are the lens lineups from Leica back in the day when this camera was released. You got the Summicron f2.8, the Summicron f2, Elmar 3.5 and 2.8, Summicron f2, this is the 50 millimeters, this is the 35, Summilux 50, Elmar collapsible, Elmarit, and Summicron on 90, and then it has all the reference numbers for the different lenses and you know, the body and all that. So yeah, this was all for this overview. I'm telling you, it's my favorite Leica as it's so simple and clean in the viewfinder. I shoot 99% of the time, so I love that. It has an easy rewind knob that doesn't break because it's just goes down there. It doesn't get, like, you know, hooked onto things like the M6 and the other modern Leicas. And it's a great Leica to start. They're pretty affordable, at least in Europe. This one was around 400 euros. This one actually was a friend's, and I have it as a loan for now, as I wanted to do this video and compare a few things that are different between these two models. And yeah, that's about all there is about the Leica M2, my favorite Leica. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll make more videos about the Leica M2 soon. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.